Good morning. On behalf of the Alliance of Women in Workers' Compensation, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar. Today's webinar is entitled Technology Transformation and is a pre-recorded session from the WCRI conference in March and is being broadcast today, May 18th, 2023. Before we get started, I would like to thank our 2023 corporate sponsors for their support on hosting events such as this. They support us not because they want their logos on the screen, but they support the cause, which is to effect positive change in the workers' compensation industry through networking, supporting, mentoring, and collaboration. The Alliance is inclusive of all professionals in workers' compensation, regardless of career stage, with the belief that we can all learn from and support each other. Our theme this year is Together Towards Tomorrow. Be sure to head to the Alliance website for all upcoming events. We are excited to be hosting webinars, collaboration sessions, and in-person events throughout 2023. Be sure to check back on the website for registration details. And if you cannot make one of our virtual or in-person events, don't worry. All events are recorded and on demand for our followers. Our book club is back for 2023, and we are kicking off the Quarter 2 book club with You Are Not Listening, What You're Missing and Why It Matters by Kate Murphy, and Together We Rise by the Lady Leaders Book Club. Head to our website to join the discussion. The Alliance grew so much last year as we launched several new chapters. Please be sure to connect with your local ambassador for upcoming events to kick off your time with the Alliance. If you would like to learn more about the ambassador program, please check out a replay of our January panel where we highlighted the plan for 2023. Change is preceded by trust. It is through acceptance and inclusion that trust will be formed and positive impact will occur. The Alliance is committed to creating a safe space in the workers' compensation industry for women of diverse backgrounds and experiences through a shared culture that integrates various perspectives. This is who we are and who we will be. The time to do better and be better is now. The Alliance understands that diversity is a journey that will take time to make meaningful changes to our organization, its followers, and its supporters. We will be intentional in making progress along our key pillars of change. Turning to today's webinar, the workers' compensation industry has undergone significant technology transformation over the past 3 years. Despite the progress, some might say we still have a long way to go to catch up to other industries. Hear from Leah Cooper, Managing Director of Global Consumer Technology of Sedgwick, as she provides us big picture thinking about how organizations are designing, building, and implementing new technology to improve the overall experience of the injured worker. Leah Cooper holds responsibility for all client-facing technology, including platforms dedicated to claim inquiry, intake, and online claim reporting capabilities. She oversees programs related to Sedgwick's Technology and Innovation Labs, and in 2020, she initiated and led the team that designed and built a new global intake platform, which is now Sedgwick's leading-edge, cloud-based, multilingual platform that enables web-based or API-driven submission of claims. Leah was recently selected a Business Insurance Woman to Watch in 2022. Although this is a pre-recorded session, please utilize the chat feature throughout this keynote to engage with your fellow members about this pertinent topic. Thank you for the time you're spending with us today, and we hope you enjoy this webinar.
Hey, thank you so much, Jennifer, and it is such an honor. I love being here with you guys. The energy in this room is absolutely fantastic, and honestly, there's nothing like a 45-minute speech on technology right after lunch to just wake you right up. But I really hope that, you guys asked me here to talk a little bit about technology transformation, and it's something that means a lot to me, and it's something that I think we all have an opportunity to be involved in. Even if you're not a member of an IT staff, I think that there are really relevant roles for everyone to play in this conversation as we think about how our industry is going to change over the next few years. So, I wanted to share a few thoughts about what I'm hearing in the tech space, hopefully give you guys some really good information that you can use when you're talking to others from the IT teams, and really get a sense for what it is that the conversations are about out there. And over the last 12 to 24 months, I've had an opportunity in my role to think a whole lot about what our clients are asking us about. And they're finally starting to ask about automation. It's been a while, but I think that these are starting to be some table stakes sort of conversations And so I want to tell you a little bit about what I've heard and give you some ammunition when you're talking to clients and when you're talking to IT partners so that we can all a little bit better understand what's coming and what's already here. So I have dubbed 2023 the year of automation and communication. These are the two things that I hear most about from clients when they talk about their pain points and when they talk to us about exploring new avenues of opportunity. And when we talk about automation, I work with a friend named Scott Rogers, and some of you may actually know him. And Scott is real big on, he wants the full thing. He wants end to end. He wants the full Monty. And what I always like to say to him, Scott, is you don't have to go full Monty on all of this. Automation has opportunity for small incremental steps. If you break it down into the tiny pieces and parts that actually go into our business process, I bet every single one of you can think of 10 different areas where there's a good opportunity to introduce something like that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the components that go into them today, some of the AI-based tools that are out there, and then give you some real examples of how we approach this so you can have some very practical applications. And I was talking to Mark here beforehand, and there is nothing that drives me more crazy than all of these great ideas that are going to revolutionize the industry that have no real practical application. So I believe very strongly that anything in technology should be very, very practical and easily explained, or else someone's doing it wrong. If someone can't, in 10 seconds, tell you what something's supposed to do, then that's where you actually have to dig a little bit deeper because maybe they don't know. We bluff a lot, just saying. Communication is the other area where we have to think through the way in which we've gone about it. I come from a company that is still very, very call center specific. We take a lot of inbound phone calls. We make a lot of outbound phone calls. In fact, I believe it's over 40 million a year. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. And I don't know about you, but I don't answer unknown numbers. No one does. I think there's actually a feature on your phone where you can shut that off. So the way in which we communicate, that's going to change as well over the next few years. Being able to chat, be it through an online window or be it through a text message on your phone, that's going to become the norm. People are very used to working in the retail industry or the travel industry and being able to ask a question and get something back in real time. The fact that it's difficult sometimes in our space to do that, I think that's where we're going to be pushed as an industry to change. So we have a lot of ground for opportunity there as well. But let's kind of dig into the nerdy stuff. And if I get too nerdy, I'm just going to go ahead and apologize right now. There are two different things that I want to talk about on the automation side today. You've got artificial intelligence, and then you've got automation. Those are very, very, very much not the same thing. AI refers to a set of tools that you can use to really transform the way that you look at something. I'm going to give you a full list of examples when it comes to AI tools. But if someone says, hey, I need AI because I need to automate, that's actually not true. They're very different things. You don't have to have AI to automate. What you do have to have is history and data. You actually need to know what you're doing in the claim space. And in my opinion, I think that's where a lot of insurtechs have come up short. We work in a very complicated industry. There is no silver bullet to automating this stuff. But I think the experience that every single person in this room brings to understanding the claims process, that is the single most valuable piece of the automation puzzle that so many people out there don't have. So honestly, it's the combination of history and experience with data and then with the AI tools. So let's talk a little bit about what those tools are. Man, I love that I did not do that pretty animation. But that was nice. So when you think about the tools themselves, we have 4 main categories that I want to make sure you guys are familiar with today. These are the ones that usually come up from client questions. Number 1, first and foremost, is RPA. RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation. And sadly, these are not actual like little robots sitting at a workstation, but that would be so cool. So cool if they were. These are pieces of software that run on a laptop or a desktop that mimic human action. That's all they are, pieces of software. And there are 4 main things that an RPA bot will do. Number 1, they monitor for something. Maybe they monitor an email queue. Maybe they monitor a claims administration system for a new task to be created. So monitoring is number 1. Number 2 is extraction. So they can pull information out of a document or off of a screen. And so pulling that information to use somehow, that's a big part of RPA. Number 3, and this is the one that I think most of us are familiar with, we call it parroting. So this is when you actually mimic a user's actions against a system. So they can see if you move the mouse. They can see if you type a word into a particular field on the screen. And so that's parroting. RPA bots can do that. And then the 4th thing is moving data. So you know how we just talked about when someone can extract a piece of data from a screen? Well, then you can also turn around and go enter it. Let me give you a real example. This was early on in our use of RPA bots when we were just learning about them. We had a client who wanted to send us a spreadsheet of new claims for COVID right out of the gate. And so we didn't have an upload process that wouldn't take us like 2 months to build. And so we said, okay, what if instead we used a bot to watch the email box, open the email when it came in, double click using that parrot thing on the file, read each line, navigate over to our intake system, and enter it in. That's a real example of what a bot can do in terms of a process. It's not full automation of a claim, but it just saved 4 people a lot of time every single day working out of spreadsheets. That's kind of a great use case for RPA bots. Let me just very quickly say what's not a good use case. It's not going around the way that a system works. So we actually had a lot of our business partners who say, well, I don't really like it when it creates this task for me, so I'm going to use a bot to automatically close that task. Just don't create the task. It's like, I'm probably like going on about something that doesn't mean a whole lot to you guys, but nonetheless, there are right ways and wrong ways to use this tech, and RPA bots can be very powerful if you really think through some of the options there. NLP, natural language processing. You're probably going to hear the term NLP because it's coming up a lot in some of the chat-based technology that's out there today. NLP, and there are a lot of tools out there for doing this, is something that reads text and discerns an intent. Okay, and so for example, you might say, I have a question about my claim, which is virtually the same thing as saying, hey, is my claim approved, or something along those lines. Discerning intent based upon the different ways that someone can actually ask a question, that's the heart of natural language processing, because you want to be able to figure out what's being asked in order to return the right information. So that's NLP. Rules-based engines. These are things that actually run in the background. When you feed them information, it evaluates all of the different points in what you just fed them to say, if it's this, and this, and this, then do this. That's all a rules-based engine is. Don't let anybody tell you that it's more complicated than that, because at the end of the day, that's seriously as hard as it gets. And then finally, the grand poobah of AI, machine learning. Everybody in the world has heard of machine learning and what it does, and I bet you guys get asked a lot about what companies are doing with machine learning. Probably the most prevalent thing that people hear today has to do with predictive models. And everybody here know what predictive models are? Yeah. So at the end of the day, in 30 seconds or less, all it means is that you feed millions of claims into a system, and it recognizes based upon certain factors how things are going to turn out. That's all it is. That's predictive modeling. Now, Well, I say that's all it is, and don't get me wrong, there are thousands, if not millions, of factors that can go into it. So it's complicated. But at the heart of it, it's statistical analysis. That's really what it boils down to. Some of the other types of machine learning, though, are getting to be pretty cool. So I don't know if you guys have seen all the commercials about, hey, have a car wreck, take a picture of the damage, and we'll actually determine your claim value. Or, hey, you had water leak in your home, take a picture, and we'll actually give you a quote right there on the spot. That is image analysis using machine learning. And so image analysis has to have the ability to recognize differences. That's what it all boils down to. So you have to be able to know that was a Toyota Camry, and a Toyota Camry normally looks like this. And so the difference in what you're showing me from this accident is X. That is incredibly complicated if you think about how hard it would be to think through all of the differences that could exist from a single automobile accident. So I personally think we have a really long way to go on that, but we are moving in that direction. I can't even see that anymore. Chatbots. Everybody knows what chatbots are. So chatbots can be automatically answered, or they can be live answered by someone in the background. But at the end of the day, chatbots don't work unless you have natural language processing behind them to know what's being asked. And then you have to be able to go and retrieve the right information and serve it up automatically. I think we're going to see a whole lot of this coming in the customer support areas because, frankly, no one can staff a customer support team anymore. And so everybody always asks me, don't you get resistance from this, from people thinking they're taking their jobs? Anybody here have a full staff just sitting there waiting to take phone calls? Because we certainly don't. That's actually a challenge for, I think, a lot of people these days. And then finally, network security tools. I always tell this story because I love this particular one. We have a wonderful nerd in charge of our security group. And he has implemented AI-based tools that detect whether or not there's unusual network patterns going on. So what that means is they scan our network 24/7 around the globe and know what normal is. They know that during this window, this customer sends us this type of file. They know that during this window, this analytics tool makes a connection to our network to do something. That's actually pretty cool in and of itself. But what's even more important is that if something looks even slightly abnormal based upon the degree of what that thing is trying to do, this is network intrusion detection and anything like that, it can actually throw up a red flag and automatically cut off that connection to the network. That's phenomenal. And this is actually a real story. So we had a guest come into the office, and that guest wanted to be able to hook up their phone to our guest network because we have horrible, horrible cell service where our office is. And so we gave them the guest password, they connected. Within 2 minutes, that phone, which had a virus on it, tried to deploy some software into our network inside our own offices. So not only did this intrusion detection catch that, it shut off the phone and it told us, hey, this guy's on the second floor. Go get him, which is kind of cool. So anyway, these are some of the really neat AI tools that exist out there. But now let's talk about automation. So that's a little bit different than the AI tools. This is where you take a look at processes and say, history, data, tools, what can we do to impact that? In the claims area, there are 4 different places where we have looked at automation so far. And this is not limited to what we're doing right this second in terms of research, but this is where we've successfully deployed it, because I want to make this relevant to everybody. Gathering data automatically from external sources. If you're triggered to go out and pull something that you're going to need for a claim, that's great, let's do it automatically. Let's go get it, and then let's use it in real time. So that's number 1. Right now we're doing that for eligibility validations. We're doing that for policy coverage retrieval. We're doing that for all sorts of different things that we might need to go get on the front end of a claim. Estimation and calculation of the value of a claim. Now, that might need some data modeling to say, here are the scenarios that we're seeing for this claim. Go calculate the likelihood of it being under $200, under $400, under $600, whatever it is. Just anecdotally, I think someone once told me that in our workers' comp book, which you guys know is pretty large, a little less than half of all claims are less than $700. And yet we spend the same amount of time dealing with those as we do the really tough stuff. So as we think about areas for where we can introduce automation, it's on the low dollar claims, it's on the simple administration claims, but we've got to identify those as they come in. And identification is the trickiest part to getting that right, because you certainly don't want to automatically greenlight a very complicated or potentially liability-oriented claim. Validation based on documentation. This is one of my favorites, and I'm going to give you guys a real example of this, but what if you could read a document that was uploaded at the time someone submitted a claim to say, yep, I can approve that. On the disability side, right now we are able to read doctor's notes that confirm pregnancies. You don't have to touch it. We're able to finally move beyond worrying about a full-scale investigation, because all you need is a doctor's note for that. How could we possibly think about doing that a little bit differently in the workers' comp space? I think on MO claims, there are some opportunities there. But being able to read the document and extract the pieces of information you need that are relevant to your particular case, that's a really exciting way to use AI automation. And then finally, rules-based decisioning. So this is where you actually say, yep, I have enough to approve it, or nope, this needs investigation. I will never tell anyone to automatically deny something, because that is a lawsuit waiting to happen. However, we can say the likelihood of litigation happening is X, and therefore pay attention to it, or the likelihood of this being a 5-second resolution is Y, get it out the door. So those are kind of exciting ways to think about automation. But let me tell you about 3 really cool programs that we've implemented that show a practical use for this. We have some clients still emailing us claims, which is perfectly fine. They've done it that way for years and years, and they do it by either filling out an email and giving us details of the workers' comp claim in that way, or attaching a form. And there's no consistent way that they do it. And it would be lovely if it were consistent, but as it's not, we had to come up with an AI-based solution for that. So we have an RPA bot monitoring an email inbox for reports of new claims. And we're getting 700 to 800 a day from this one particular client. And then monitors, opens up the email, saves the attachment, and uploads it into an AI tool. We call this document digitization because we've trained an AI engine to be able to say, I need to get these, and I'm not kidding when I make up this word, 93 fields out of this document. It might be 1 page, it might be 10 pages. No matter what the format is, because we use an AI tool that knows how to read it like a human, it can pick out those 93 fields, fill out the intake process, and then click submit on the screen and send it through. We used to have 3.5 people, and everyone laughs at me when I say 1.5, but you guys know what I mean. 3.5 people doing this on a daily basis because it took forever to enter these claims in. Now we're down to 0 people, and it takes less than 1 minute to get a claim through the door. It's a really good example of process automation, even though it's not fancy. Doesn't have to be fancy, it just has to work. Warranty claims, and this is my personal favorite. So we had a client come to us and say, man, we have a season pass refund program. We get about 75,000 of those refund requests a year, which is huge. And this is for a ski pass. And so there are various reasons why someone might need a refund. Maybe they have broken their leg, maybe they have become pregnant, maybe whatever it is. Maybe they moved. And so they had a very difficult administration process going on for those 75,000 claims every year. And so what can we do to help? So we first single sign on the users from that portal, and single sign on, in case you guys don't know, is where you're authenticated on one system. And because you're authenticated over there, you put a trust in place to go to a different system, okay? So you single sign on to the intake portal, you answer some questions about why are you asking for the refund? And if they pick a certain answer, for example, pregnancy, then we can ask them to upload any supporting documentation that they have. Maybe they already have the doctor's note saying that they are pregnant. If they have it, and they do have it more than 45% of the time, we're finding, they can upload it then and there. We can read that document in real time. We can calculate the prorated value for the refund amount because we've gone out and hit the client system, and we can automatically approve it for X amount. That is a true end-to-end, no-touch solution. And yes, it's on the warranty side, but the tools and the process and the thoughts that go into creating that are the same, no matter the line of business. So that's what gives me a lot of hope for what we can do together in the workers' comp space over the next few years. And then finally, in property claims, we have a self-service program that has gone live that says if someone has water damage to their home, be it from a leak or a flood or what have you, they can give us descriptions of the size of the room that was impacted, the types of finishes on the walls, ceilings, and floors, and we hit a real-time building calculator to do an immediate expected cost of the repairs, given the current cost of the building materials plus labor market in that region. And then we can say, would you prefer a check for X amount, or do you want us to send out a repair? So that's a really exciting new program if you think about what we can do from a self-service perspective. All of these are real. All of these are in production. So these are not vaporware, these are not hypotheticals. These are really cool ideas that have come to life in the last 12 months. So how do we get people to buy into this? This is actually one of the toughest things because you say you've got a great new program, but how does that help me? Good question and fair question. So in order to facilitate that client confidence that you actually know what you're doing, yeah, you need some success stories, and sometimes you don't have them. So you have to be able to show them that you understand that in order to make their program successful with automation, you're starting small. Boiling the ocean is never the way to go when it comes to IT projects. Start small. Pick out a reasonable use case, like we did with the pregnancy claim, because that's just about the easiest one you can handle. So begin small and deploy platforms that have flexible add-in components. I like to think of the things that we build in our automation space as Legos. And I even had a PowerPoint deck once that had everything in Legos, and someone said, they might be a client, you have to take that down. So anyway, building blocks. Start with building blocks. Number 2, facilitate transparency. This one is actually really important because if people don't have confidence in what you're doing, then very likely they're not going to feel good about letting you automate the handling of their claims. And so the transparency has to come with a robust analytics program as well as a view into how the claims were handled and decided. And so let's say that you run a predictive model against a claim. You want the client to know what the scoring was. Let's say that you automatically calculated a value of a claim. You want them to understand how you got to that estimation. Making all of that available to a client shows a true partnership when it comes to that automation. So transparency is incredibly important. The third thing that I would say is that you want to align your client strategy. You want to make sure that the things that are most important to them are also the most important facets of your program. If their focus is 100% on the claimant experience, well, you're probably going to think differently about how that program works than you would if they were 100% concerned about efficiency gains. And so you have to make sure you understand exactly what's important to your clients in order for them to feel good that you know you're listening to them, you know? Same thing with anything. A lot of you guys are in sales and you know this. Analytic efficiency and KPIs. You have to be able to demonstrate the savings from this automation. It's not enough that it's cool. Now, I would do it because it's cool, but at the end of the day, a program manager actually wants to see dollar for dollar why an automation solution is better than a human being handling it. Yeah, that's a very fair statement. And so as you roll out these programs, you have to be very conscious to develop the metrics and tracking for your results so that you can actually prove that you're doing good when it comes to these programs. That's the keys to adoption. And when you go to someone and say, hey, we want to try this with you, without even thinking about how you're going to have to kind of give this away at the beginning, you have to reassure them that you are a partner in this, and these are the things that we're keeping in mind as we look at your program automation. And then finally, how do you move forward? How do you guys in this room begin? How do you start to think about ways to introduce automation? The first thing I would say, and when we began our RPA process, we would actually go out in IT and we would sit with people all day. And we'd actually want to see what they were doing. I'm going to say it out loud. We call them stupid insurance rules. These things exist because they've been in place for 40 years. You know, and I think everybody in this place has heard some things that we've been doing just because we've been doing them for years upon years. But if you sit down with fresh eyes and actually look at how people are administering claims or how people are doing a certain process, you're going to realize we're still sending faxes out. We're still calling people to ask a question when we could email them or send them a text link or something like that. Starting small and developing real use cases by just going and talking to people within your company, that's number one. And that's how we got our first use cases and were able to prove that the programs could work successfully. So then you also want to use analytics, but you don't want to rely on automated discovery. And I'm going to tell you a quick horror story about that. We deployed these bots that were supposed to do automatic business process discovery. I've heard that these can be extremely successful. However, the ones we deployed, unfortunately, were not, and it's because there was so much variance in the way that one person did his job to the other person. When you have examiners who are incredibly good at what they do and seasoned, they've developed their own methodologies, and rarely are they identical. And so in automated process discovery, they can't handle those kinds of different discrepancies and it won't find it. You guys who have experience in this industry and who know exactly how things work, you would be able to actually sit down and do that sort of discovery, I think, a little bit more effectively than using a bot to do that. Building off data. Predictive models are your friends. So I know a lot of people don't quite understand what goes into predictive models. And in fact, I sat down with our chief data scientist 3 months ago and I said, please explain this one to me in detail. How do we get here? Data scientists love to explain this. So if you sit down with any of them, they would love to tell you exactly what goes into your predictive models. Embrace what I call evolutionary development. So there's a great movie called What About Bob? And it starred Bill Murray. And Bill Murray had a lot of hang-ups about how to get from point A to point B. And his shrink, played by Richard Dreyfuss, actually told him the trick is baby steps. Baby step onto the bus, baby step to my bus seat, baby step to this, baby step to that. Same thing. You actually need to be able to baby step your IT development in slow but real and deployable increments. And so maybe the first thing you're going to do is say, man, I want something to just monitor this box. Then I want something to come in and move something from here to here. Then I want something to predict what's going to happen. And so just go slowly. That's all I'm saying. Go slowly and incrementally, but build your programs in a way that can be added on. Build a solid base with a lot of transparency, and then start adding in the tools. And then finally, and I can't stress this enough, a lot of people forget to think about how the end user is going to be impacted by all of this. And so I think it's really important to go back and readdress the way in which we communicate when we're starting to communicate through different tool sets. Maybe there's a better way to craft a message, because think about it, we used to send packets like this. I think a lot of times we still send packets like this. When you start sending follow-ups, you no longer maybe make a phone call. Maybe you send an email. Maybe you send a text on your phone. Maybe you figure out an even better way that I can't even think of yet because some 15-year-old kid hasn't figured it out. all of these things impact the way that we need to be able to interact with our claimants at the end of the day. And so I just encourage you to put yourself into their shoes as you're introducing all of this technology. Is it going to be better for them? Is it going to make their lives easier? Because at the end of the day, if we can't honestly impact the way that we talk to people and the way that we help them engage in the process, then we as technicians haven't done our jobs. And so I think that we tend to be really, really good at leaving out the human component of technology. And I think that's, at the end of the day, I want to really encourage you to keep that in your heads and to focus on that particular piece. I'll be around if you have any more questions for me, but I just really appreciate the time that you've given me to come and talk to you a little bit, and I hope it was helpful to you.